The smell of linseed oil and turpentine hung in the air of Archer's fine art restoration, a modest studio tucked between towering galleries in Manhattan's Chelsea district. Maya Reeves hunched over her workbench, eyes narrowed behind magnifying glasses as she delicately cleaned the surface of a landscape painting most would consider unremarkable. "Careful with that one," said Walter, the shop owner, shuffling past with his morning coffee. "Clients only paying basic rate." Maya nodded without looking up. At 32, she'd spent 10 years in Walter's employ, restoring everything from flea market finds to minor works from regional museums. Her small desk occupied the back corner, away from the front where clients might see her worn sweaters and practical shoes. "We've got the Thorn Gallery reception tonight," Walter mentioned casually. "I told them you'd be there to help with setup." She glanced up. "Setup? Glasses, coats, that sort of thing." Walter adjusted his bow tie. "They're unveiling that Caravaggio they acquired. Every important person in the art world will attend." Maya's hands stilled briefly. "The lost Caravaggio? The one they found in that French attic?" "The very same. Authenticated last month. Worth about 40 million. Walter sipped his coffee. "Don't worry, you won't have to talk to anyone, just help the caterers." The bell over the door chimed, saving Maya from responding. She returned to her work, ignoring the voices at the front of the shop. "Mr. Archer, so good to see you." The booming voice belonged to Vincent Thorn himself, director of the Thorn Gallery and tonight's host. "I've come to personally invite you to our private viewing before the reception." "Vincent, I'm honored," Walter gushed. Heavy footsteps approached Maya's workspace. She kept her head down. "And this must be your famous assistant," Vincent said, his voice dripping with practiced charm. Walter laughed. "Maya? No. She just handles the minor restorations. Anything requiring real expertise comes to me." Maya felt heat creep up her neck but remained focused on her work. "Ah," Vincent's interest evaporated instantly. "Well, tonight's viewing starts at 7. The authentication team will present their findings on the Caravaggio before the crowd arrives. Fascinating story. Tremendous discovery." After they left, Maya allowed herself to look up. In the reflection of the window, she caught sight of her plain face, hair pulled back in a practical bun. Nothing like the elegant art historians and gallery owners who would fill the Thorn tonight. She returned to the landscape, her hands steady despite the ache in her chest. 10 years of working on other people's masterpieces, 10 years of standing, in shadows, watching others claim expertise they didn't possess. 10 years of keeping her secret. The Thorn Gallery glittered with champagne flutes and designer dresses. Maya moved quietly among the pre-reception guests, offering drinks on a tray while trying to remain invisible. The room buzzed with anticipation. Curators, critics, and collectors all waiting for the unveiling of the Caravaggio. "Have you seen it yet?" a woman in diamonds whispered to her companion. "They say it's the find of the century." Maya kept her eyes down, but her ears open. These were the moments she lived for. Conversations about technique, provenance, the subtle markers of authenticity. She absorbed every word, cataloging details most would miss. Vincent Thorn stood at the front of the gallery, flanked by security guards and a stern-looking woman with silver hair whom Maya recognized as Dr. Helena Bennett, the world's foremost expert on Italian Baroque art. "Ladies and gentlemen," Vincent called out, "before our main event, Dr. Bennett will share her findings on our extraordinary acquisition." The crowd hushed as Dr. Bennett stepped forward. "As you know, this painting was discovered in an attic near Toulouse," she began. "Initial examination suggested Caravaggio's hand, but confirmation required extensive testing. After carbon dating, infrared analysis, and microscopic pigment evaluation, I'm pleased to confirm this is indeed Caravaggio's. Lost Judith beheading Holofernes, painted circa 1602. Applause erupted. Maya held her breath as two handlers removed the protective covering, revealing a dramatic scene of biblical violence, rendered in Caravaggio's distinctive chiaroscuro. "Note the characteristic tension in the composition," Dr. Bennett continued. "The diagonal thrust of Judith's arm, the dramatic lighting, all hallmarks of Caravaggio's mature period." Maya moved closer, tray forgotten at her side. something felt wrong. Her eyes traced the brushstrokes, the way the light fell across the servant's face, the peculiar handling of the blood spilling from Holofernes' neck. "Maya," Walter hissed, suddenly at her elbow. "What are you doing? Get back to work." She startled, nearly dropping her tray. Several heads turned, including Vincent's. His eyes narrowed. "Is there a problem?" he asked coldly. Walter laughed nervously. "Not at all, my assistant was just leaving." "I wasn't," Maya began. "She's very enthusiastic about art history," Walter cut in. "Sometimes forgets her place." Vincent's smile didn't reach his eyes. "How charming. Perhaps she'd like to share her thoughts on our Caravaggio." The room fell silent. Every face turned toward Maya, expressions ranging from amusement to disdain. I should get back to the kitchen," she mumbled, cheeks burning. "No, please," Vincent insisted with theatrical politeness. "You seemed quite focused on the painting. Do you have some insight Dr. Bennett might have missed?" Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Dr. Bennett crossed her arms, eyebrow raised. "I just thought—" Maya's voice died in her throat. "Yes?" Vincent prompted, enjoying her discomfort. "It's nothing," she finished, backing away. "Excuse me." She fled to the service corridor, humiliation burning like acid in her stomach. Behind her, she heard Vincent's voice. "Now, where were we before that little interruption?" The laughter that followed chased her all the way to the kitchen. The next morning, Maya arrived at the restoration studio earlier than usual. Her hands trembled slightly as she unlocked the door, last night's humiliation still fresh in her mind. She'd barely settled at her workbench when Walter burst in, face flushed with anger. "What were you thinking?" he demanded, throwing his coat onto a chair. "Making a spectacle of yourself in front of Vincent Thorne." "I didn't say anything," Maya defended weakly. "You didn't have to. Your face said it all." Walter paced the small studio. "Do you know how many connections I've built over 20 years? How much business comes from the Thorne Gallery?" Maya stared at her hands. "I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't—" "Cut it. Vincent called me this morning. He thinks you were judging his Caravaggio." Walter lowered his voice dramatically. "He wants to know if you have some expertise he's unaware of." Her head snapped up. "What did you tell him?" Walter laughed, bitterly. "The truth, that you're a capable technician who sometimes gets ideas above her station." He sighed heavily. "Maya, you're good at what you do. Minor restorations, cleaning, prep work, but leave the authentication and major restorations to the experts, the GI." Bell chimed, cutting off Maya's response. Walter composed himself instantly, professional smile sliding into place as he turned toward the door. "Dr. Bennett, what an unexpected pleasure." Maya froze. Helena Bennett stood in the doorway, elegant. In a tailored suit, her silver hair swept into a precise chignon. "Mr. Archer, I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd stop by." Her eyes moved past him to where Maya sat. "Actually, I came to speak with your assistant." Walter's smile faltered. "Maya, whatever for." Dr. Bennett stepped fully into the studio, closing the door behind her. "I observed her reaction to the Caravaggio last night. Most interesting." Maya stood slowly, wiping her hands on her apron. "Dr. Bennett, I didn't mean to—" "You saw something," Dr. Bennett interrupted. "Something that troubled you." The studio fell silent. Walter looked between them, confusion etched on his face. I'm not qualified to comment," Maya said carefully. "Dr." Bennett's eyes narrowed. "That's not what I asked." Walter laughed nervously. "Dr. Bennett, Maya is simply an assistant. She handles minor pieces, nothing of the caliber you deal with." "Is that so?" Dr. Bennett approached Maya's workbench, examining the painting she'd been restoring. Without asking permission, she picked up a magnifying glass and studied Maya's work more closely. "Interesting technique. Very precise." "As I said, she's competent for basic work," Walter insisted. Dr. Bennett straightened, fixing Maya with an appraising look. "The Caravaggio is being moved to our conservation lab this afternoon for final documentation. I'd like you to come observe." Walter sputtered. "That's hardly necessary." "It wasn't an invitation for you, Mr. Archer." Dr. Bennett's tone cut like glass. She handed Maya a card. 3 o'clock. Tell security I'm expecting you. After she left, Walter stared at Maya as if seeing her for the first time. What did you do? He whispered. Maya looked down at the card in her hand. Nothing, she said softly. Yet. The Thorn Gallery's conservation lab gleamed with state-of-the-art equipment. Maya felt desperately out of place among the specialized tools and the team of conservators in pristine lab coats. She clutched her worn messenger bag against her side as Dr. Bennett led her to a central workstation where the Caravaggio waited under bright lights. Everyone out, Dr. Bennett commanded. Ms. Reeves and I need the room. The technicians exchanged glances but filed out without question. Vincent Thorne remained by the door, arms crossed. Is this really necessary, Helena? He asked, making no attempt to hide his irritation. Indulge me, Vincent, she replied coolly. When they were alone with the painting, Dr. Bennett turned to Maya. Now, tell me what you saw last night. Maya's throat went dry. Vincent's presence made this feel like a trap. I really shouldn't. You're here because I want your opinion, Dr. Bennett cut in. Not his. She nodded toward Vincent. Speak freely. Maya took a deep breath. The composition is correct, she began hesitantly. The subject matter, the arrangement of figures, the dramatic lighting, all consistent with Caravaggio's style. But, Dr. Bennett prompted, but the execution... Maya stepped closer to the painting. May I? She asked, gesturing to a pair of gloves. Dr. Bennett nodded. Maya pulled them on and leaned in, studying the surface with practiced eyes. The brushwork in the drapery lacks Caravaggio's confidence, she said, voice growing stronger. His strokes had a distinctive rhythm, almost musical. These are more deliberate, careful, she pointed to the servant woman's face. And here, Caravaggio painted live models. His faces have immediacy, presence. This feels copied, not observed. Vincent made a dismissive noise. Subjective nonsense. Let her finish, Dr. Bennett said sharply. The biggest issue is the blood, Maya continued, pointing to where it spilled from Holofernes' neck. Caravaggio understood how blood behaves, its viscosity, its interaction with light. This is too stylized, too pictorial. She straightened, removing the gloves. It's a very good copy, but it's not Caravaggio. Vincent laughed incredulously. 40 years studying Italian masters, and you think you know better than Dr. Bennett? Than the entire authentication committee? Maya flushed. I'm just saying what I see. Based on what expertise? Vincent demanded. Where did you study? What credentials do you have? That's enough, Vincent, Dr. Bennett said. No, I want to know, who is she to question a work authenticated by the world's leading experts? Vincent's face had gone red. Some nobody assistant from a third-rate restoration shop? Maya looked down, shame burning through her. I'd like to conduct a simple test, Dr. Bennett said, seemingly unaffected by Vincent's outburst. She opened a drawer and removed a small bottle and cotton swab. A solvent test on an inconspicuous area. Vincent stepped forward. Absolutely not. The painting has already undergone extensive testing. One small test, Dr. Bennett insisted. Lower corner, under the frame. I forbid it. Vincent's voice hardened. This painting is the centerpiece of our fall exhibition. Tickets are sold out for the next 3 months. He glared at Maya. I won't have its authenticity questioned by someone who couldn't even get into art school. Maya's head snapped up. How did you... Walter told me everything, Vincent said coldly. How you applied to every prestigious program and got rejected. How he took pity on you because you had good hands but no formal training. He smirked. Did you think challenging this Caravaggio would somehow validate you, make up for your failures? Dr. Bennett's expression remained neutral. Interesting that you're so resistant to one simple test, Vincent. The matter is closed, he said firmly. Ms. Reeves, you can see yourself out. Dr. Bennett, I'd like a word. Maya gathered her bag, humiliation washing over her in waves. As she reached the door, Dr. Bennett called after her. Ms. Reeves, tomorrow at 9, my private studio. She handed Maya another card with an address. Don't be late. Vincent's face darkened. Helena, my studio, my rules, Dr. Bennett said, steel in her voice. You're welcome to join us, Vincent. It should be illuminating. Maya stood before a nondescript door in Brooklyn, checking the address on Dr. Bennett's card for the third time. The converted warehouse gave no indication of the renowned conservator's presence. But Maya gathered her courage and knocked. Dr. Bennett opened the door herself, dressed casually in linen pants and a smock stained with various pigments. "Right. On time," she said, stepping aside. "Come in." The studio beyond took Maya's breath away. Bathed in perfect north light from huge windows, it was a conservator's dream. Every tool, every material organized with precision. Along one wall stood a row of easels with paintings in various states of restoration. "You work here?" Maya asked, unable to hide her awe. "When I want peace," Dr. Bennett replied. "The gallery lab has better technology, but this place has better perspective." Vincent Thorne sat by a workbench, his usual elegance diminished by obvious tension. He didn't rise when Maya entered. "Let's get this over with," he said tersely. Dr. Bennett ignored him, leading Maya to a central easel draped with cloth. "Before we discuss the Caravaggio, I want to try something." She removed the cloth, revealing a damaged portrait of a young woman in 18th century dress. "This came to me yesterday. Possible Gainsborough, but in terrible condition." Maya leaned closer, examining the craquelure pattern and darkened varnish. "I'd like you to clean a small section," Dr. Bennett said, gesturing toward her workstation. "Show me how you'd approach it." Vincent stood abruptly. "This is absurd. You're letting an untrained assistant touch a potential Gainsborough?" "My painting, my choice," Dr. Bennett replied calmly. "Well, Ms. Reeves?" Maya hesitated only briefly before setting down her bag and approaching the workstation. She examined the supplies laid out. Solvents, swabs, magnifiers, all familiar. Friends. With methodical precision, she pulled on gloves, prepared her cleaning solution, and began testing on a tiny, inconspicuous area. Vincent watched with thinly veiled contempt. Dr. Bennett observed in silence as Maya worked, moving with increasing confidence as she found the right solvent mixture. Her hands moved with fluid precision, revealing the original. Colors beneath years of grime and yellowed varnish. 30 minutes passed in tense silence. Finally, Maya straightened, indicating a small cleaned section near the bottom of the canvas. "The original paint layer is intact," she said. "The varnish is degraded but removable. I'd proceed with this solvent mixture, working in small sections." Dr. Bennett examined her work through a magnifier. "Excellent judgment, clean technique." She looked up at Maya. "Now tell me about the Caravaggio." Maya glanced at Vincent, whose face had grown increasingly rigid. "I've already said too much," she demurred. "You've said just enough," Dr. Bennett replied. "But I want to know how you knew, not just your observations, your certainty." Maya took a deep breath. "When I was 19, I worked as a night janitor at the Metropolitan Museum. I spent hours, hundreds of hours, alone with the masters, not just looking, but seeing, understanding how they worked." "That doesn't make you an expert," Vincent interjected. "No," Maya agreed, "but it was a start." She looked directly at Dr. Bennett. "I taught myself, studied every technical manual, every conservation journal I could find, practiced techniques from different periods, learned how to mix pigments as they would have been made centuries ago." "Self-taught," Dr. Bennett mused. "Interesting. I've restored paintings on my own," Maya continued, gaining confidence. "Small pieces I found at estate sales, flea markets. I documented every step, built my own reference library." She hesitated. "I know how Caravaggio painted because I've done it myself, recreated his techniques, his materials, his process." Vincent snorted. "Playing with paints in your apartment doesn't make you qualified to challenge Dr. Bennett's authentication." "I never claimed to be qualified," Maya said quietly. "But I know what I see." Dr. Bennett nodded thoughtfully. "Vincent, would you bring in the package by the door?" He returned with a flat wrapped object. Dr. Bennett took it and placed it on an empty easel. 3 months ago, I acquired this painting through a private dealer," she said, carefully removing the wrapping. A small devotional piece supposedly by a minor follower of Caravaggio. The painting depicted Saint Sebastian, arrows piercing his body, face upturned in agonized ecstasy. Even in its damaged state, the mastery was evident. I'd analyzed," Dr. Bennett continued. "X-rays, pigment samples, infrared reflectography. The results were unexpected. She handed a folder to Maya, who opened it with trembling hands. Inside were technical reports, photographs, material analyses. "It's genuine," Maya whispered, eyes widening as she read. "An unknown Caravaggio." "Yes," Dr. Bennett agreed. "Worth considerably more than the 40 million the Thorne Gallery paid for their painting." Vincent's face drained of color. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," Dr. Bennett replied calmly, "that I believe Ms. Reeves is correct about your Caravaggio. It's an exceptional copy, probably 17th century, possibly by one of his followers, but not by the master's hand." "That's impossible," Vincent sputtered. "The authentication was rushed," Dr. Bennett finished. "The gallery was eager to announce the discovery before the fall season. Questions were discouraged." Maya stared at her. "You knew, I suspected," Dr. Bennett corrected. "But I lacked certainty until I saw your reaction." She smiled slightly. "You have a gift, Ms. Reeves, an eye few possess, even among trained conservators." Vincent paced the studio, running his hands through his hair. "This can't happen. The exhibition opens in 2 weeks. The publicity, the tickets, we'd be ruined." "Not necessarily," Dr. Bennett said. "The painting remains an important historical artifact, a period copy with its own significance." "People didn't pay to see a period copy," Vincent snapped. Dr. Bennett turned back to Maya. "What would you do with the Gainsborough if it were yours to restore?" Maya blinked at the sudden change of subject. I'd clean it section by section. Remove the old varnish completely before applying new. There's retouching needed along the tear at the bottom edge, but I'd keep intervention minimal, only where original paint is lost." "Show me," Dr. Bennett said simply. Vincent watched in stunned silence as Maya returned to the workbench and resumed, cleaning the portrait. Her movements were confident, decisive, each stroke revealing more of the luminous skin tones and delicate details beneath the grime. Dr. Bennett observed silently, occasionally nodding approval. After an hour, Maya had cleaned a significant portion of the young woman's face, bringing her back to life with skillful precision. "Magnificent," Dr. Bennett said softly. "This proves nothing," Vincent insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. Dr. Bennett faced him squarely. "It proves that talent sometimes exists where credentials don't. It proves that we should question our assumptions about art and about people." She turned back to Maya. "I have a proposition for you." The Thorne Gallery hummed with excitement. Crowds pressed against velvet ropes, straining for a glimpse of the controversial Caravaggio, now displayed with a revised attribution. Circle of Caravaggio, early 17th century. But the real sensation occupied the adjacent gallery. A small, newly restored painting of St. Sebastian, authenticated as a genuine, previously unknown work by Caravaggio himself. Before it stood Dr. Helena Bennett, addressing a group of rapt journalists. "The discovery highlights the importance of technical analysis combined with connoisseurship," she explained. "And it underscores why the Thorne Gallery has established our new Conservation Transparency Initiative." Behind her, Vincent Thorne nodded gravely. His earlier panic transformed into a convincing impression of ethical leadership. "We believe the public deserves to understand how we authenticate and preserve cultural treasures," he added smoothly, "which is why we've appointed a new Director of Conservation Standards." At the edge of the crowd, Maya Reeves shifted uncomfortably. In her new blazer. 3 months had transformed her life completely, from Walter's back room to the Thorne's state-of-the-art lab, from invisible assistant to sought-after expert. Her name now appeared on the gallery's conservation publications, her methodology scrutinized by colleagues worldwide. Walter himself stood nearby, alternating between looking proud and perplexed. At his former assistant's meteoric rise, "Ms. Reeves brings a unique perspective to our team," Vincent continued, gesturing for her to join them. "Her extraordinary eye and technical mastery have already transformed our approach." Maya stepped forward, acutely aware of the cameras tracking her movement. Dr. Bennett squeezed her arm encouragingly. "Ms. Reeves, can you explain how you identified the misattribution?" called a reporter. Maya took a deep breath. "Art speaks its own language, one of materials, techniques, decisions. When you've studied that language deeply enough, you can hear when something isn't quite authentic. Without formal training, how did you develop this expertise? Asked another. She smiled slightly. By looking, really looking, and by doing, recreating. Techniques until my hands understood what my eyes were seeing. Do you feel vindicated after years of being overlooked? The question hung in the air. Maya considered the path that had brought her here, the nights cleaning museum floors, the weekends hunched over flea market finds, the rejections that had shaped her solitary education. I wasn't overlooked, she said finally. I was becoming. Sometimes talent needs time in shadow to grow strong. Later, as the crowd dispersed, Dr. Bennett approached with a small package. A gift, she said, pressing it into Maya's hands. Open it privately. In her new office, still strange, still overwhelming, Maya unwrapped the package to find a worn leather-bound book. Opening it revealed handwritten notes, diagrams, formulas, a conservator's lifetime of knowledge, Dr. Bennett's personal techniques and observations. A note fell from between the pages. Some talents are taught. The greatest are recognized. You have been seen. Maya ran her fingers over the book's weathered cover, thinking of all the hours she'd spent teaching herself, doubting herself, pushing herself to understand what others merely observed. The journey had been lonely, painful, at times, but now she understood its purpose. Some talents need darkness to develop, like photographs in a darkroom. Some voices need silence to find their strength, and some gifts only reveal themselves when the moment demands courage. She placed the book carefully on her desk, no longer hiding, no longer invisible, finally ready to step into the light she'd been preparing for all along. The truth reveals itself to those who look long enough with open eyes. Behind every moment of recognition lies 1,000 hours of preparation, unseen by the world. Judged not by credentials or confidence, but by the steady hands that do the work even when no one is watching. For the most profound talent often grows in the shadows, waiting patiently for its moment to shine.